I always thought if it ever happened, if I ever caught her cheating, I'd explode. Flip a table, punch a wall, scream until my voice cracked. But when it actually happened, none of that came. No rage. No fire. Just silence. Cold and calm, like a snowstorm in the middle of July. Her name's Haley. We were married for 8 years. Met in our late 20s, when we were still pretending we had life figured out. She was sharp, driven, warm in a way that made rooms feel softer when she stepped into them. I loved her like a fool loves magic, completely, irrationally, even when I knew the trick. We bought this modest 2-bedroom house just outside Raleigh. Nothing fancy. A front porch, a little shed out back I turned into a workshop. She painted the kitchen yellow because it reminded her of Tuscany, even though we'd never been. And for a while, it felt like we were building something worth keeping. But something changed. Slowly. Like paint peeling under sunlight. It wasn't overnight. First it was the way she stopped asking about my day. Then the way she stopped laughing at my jokes. Then the way she stopped looking at me when I walked into a room. I made excuses. Told myself work stress. Told myself hormones. Told myself life just gets in the way sometimes. I held on harder, thinking if I loved her enough, it would turn things around. But you can't row a boat alone in circles and expect to reach the shore. The distance between us became a third presence in the house, louder than either of us. It slept between us in bed, sat with us at dinner, watched TV with us in the evenings. And every time I reached out, it swallowed my hand whole. Still, I never thought she'd cheat. That kind of thing happens to other people. People who weren't paying attention. People who stopped trying. I was trying. The night it happened, I wasn't supposed to be home. That's the funny part. I'd taken a job out in Asheville for a weekend HVAC install. But the guy postponed last minute. Contractor issues, nothing serious. I turned around and drove back 3 hours without texting her, thinking I'd surprise her. Maybe we'd have dinner. Maybe it'd feel like old times, even just for a night. I walked through the door around 5:45 p.m. House was quiet. Too quiet. Her car was in the driveway, but I didn't hear the TV or her Spotify playlists, which were usually her go-to when she worked from home. I figured she was napping. I set my bag down, kicked off my boots, and made my way to the bedroom. That door was never closed when she was alone. Ever. I knocked once. No answer. Then I opened it. I wish I could tell you I didn't see what I saw. But I did. There she was, bare back, tangled sheets, his clothes in a pile on the floor. And him, that smug face turning toward me like he'd just won a prize. He looked familiar. Real estate guy. I'd met him once, at her company's Christmas party. Shook his hand. Told him I liked his tie. Haley didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just froze. I stared at them for what felt like hours, but was maybe 5 seconds. I didn't say a word. I didn't throw a punch. I didn't ask questions. I just pulled my phone out of my pocket, tapped the camera, and took a picture. The shutter sound echoed louder than any scream could have. Haley gasped, covered herself with the blanket. Ryan, wait, please. I smiled. Just a little. Not a mean smile. Not even sarcastic. Just tired. Worn out. That smile you give when you finally see the thing that's been haunting you for months. I'm good, I said, my voice steady. I tucked the phone in my back pocket, turned around, and walked out. No yelling. No drama. Just a photo, a smile, and a quiet exit. Her reaction? Priceless. She wasn't ready for calm. She expected a show. Expected me to fall apart right there on the carpet while she scrambled for excuses. But I'd done all my crying already. In the kitchen, in the workshop, in the cold corners of our bed every night for the last year. There was nothing left to spill. I walked outside, got in my truck, sat there for a while, hands gripping the steering wheel, breathing like I'd just run a mile. My chest hurt, but not like heartbreak. More like release. Like something heavy had finally slipped off. Zach, my buddy from work, picked up on the first ring. You all right? He asked. He must have heard it in my silence. I need a couch tonight, I said. Say no more. I drove over. Didn't talk about it that night. Just sat on his porch with a beer, watching the sun disappear behind the trees. The next morning, I woke up early and went back to the house, not to talk, but to get my stuff. She wasn't there. Must have gone to a hotel or his place, maybe both. I packed in silence. Clothes, tools, important papers. Left behind the couch, the bed, anything that felt like it had her fingerprints on it. On the fridge, I left a sticky note. No need to explain. I saw enough. Take care. Then I left again. this time for good. You know what people don't talk about after something like that? The silence. Not the kind in the room when it happens, but the kind that comes after. The days after. The weeks. The stillness that follows when the screaming doesn't happen. When there's no epic fight. No broken dishes or slammed doors. Just absence. After I left the house, after I walked away with nothing but a duffel and a phone full of confirmation, I expected the fallout to come fast. Angry texts. Tearful voicemails. Maybe even him showing up at my buddy Zach's place, trying to defend the undefendable. But it didn't come like that. Haley waited a day. Then she called. I didn't pick up. She texted, "Please call me." I didn't mean for it to happen like that. Like there's a good way to be caught cheating in your shared bed. I didn't respond. I didn't block her, either. That wasn't for her. That was for me, to prove I didn't have to react. Silence was power, and it drove her nuts. 3 days later, I got an email. A long one. Paragraphs. Apologies. Words like mistake, confused, needed connection. She tried to paint the picture like we were both at fault. Like maybe we'd grown distant, and it just happened. Like she tripped and fell into bed with another man. I read the whole thing once. Then I archived it. Zach watched me from across his kitchen table. "You gonna write back?" "No," I said, sipping my coffee. "I already did. With a picture." He laughed. A hard, proud kind of laugh. "Cold. Clean," I said. "There's a difference." What followed were some of the loneliest, clearest weeks of my life. I crashed on Zach's couch for a while, then found a small apartment above a bakery downtown. It smelled like cinnamon rolls at 5 a.m. and bread by noon. I paid month to month and slept on a mattress on the floor. Bare walls. One chair. A table I found at a flea market. But it was mine. It didn't feel like a half-built life with someone else's fingerprints on it. It felt like starting from zero, and weirdly, I liked that. Haley kept trying. "Can we just talk? You don't have to forgive me, but please." It didn't mean anything. "You mean everything." That one made me laugh. Out loud. I remember standing in the parking lot outside work, looking at my phone, shaking my head. If I meant everything, why was I treated like nothing? I never replied. I guess what shocked me most was how quickly I adjusted. Not to being alone. That part was rough. But to peace. To not walking into a house where I had to wonder what version of her I was going to get that day. To not sleeping beside someone who turned away the second the lights went off. About a month after I left, I got a text from her mom. "I'm sorry for what Haley did. You were always good to her. We love you." That one almost broke me. Because yeah, I was good to her. I showed up. I worked hard. I never stepped out, never disrespected her, never gave her a reason to question my love. But love, as it turns out, isn't bulletproof. And it sure as hell isn't reciprocal just because you gave it wholeheartedly. I started going to therapy, not because I was shattered, but because I didn't want to carry the weight of this into whatever came next. I told the therapist everything. How I walked in, how I took the picture, how I didn't yell, how I walked away. She said, "You handled it with dignity." I said, "I handled it with exhaustion." There's a difference. 3 months later, I filed. I didn't tell Haley ahead of time. My lawyer sent the papers. I didn't do it to punish her. I did it to end the chapter. Quietly. Permanently. She signed. No contest. No drama. Maybe she knew better than to try and spin it. Funny thing? She kept that photo. I know she did. She told me in one of her messages weeks after the papers were signed. "Sometimes I look at the photo and think about how calm you were. That smile on your face. It haunts me." Good. Let it. Because that smile wasn't for her. It was for me. That smile was the moment I realized I had nothing left to lose and everything to gain by walking away. Now I'm doing all right. The apartment is still simple, but there's art on the walls now. I built a new table with my own hands. Oak and steel, solid. I cook more. I sleep better. I don't flinch at silence. I fill it with music or leave it as is. Sometimes I think about Haley. Not with bitterness. Just curiosity. Who she's with now. If she still thinks about that moment. That look on my face when she expected fire and got a photograph. I hope she does. Not because I want her to hurt, but because I want her to remember what it looks like when a man finally chooses himself. That's what I did. I didn't take revenge. I took back my dignity. And I left her with the one thing she never expected. Silence. And sometimes, silence is the loudest goodbye there is.